Hello bookworms! Today I'm going to be doing my November wrap-up video for you. So if you'll remember from last month, I said that I was probably going to finish a couple more books before October ended, but I really only finished one more, and as predicted, I did not read as much in November because I moved. So that was the bulk of my time this month, and not only, packing to move, then the actual moving date, but then also unpacking and building new furniture and just trying to get things set up and in like a livable working order. I just haven't had the time to read. And then also we had Thanksgiving. There was also time spent with family. It's actually Black Friday today when I'm filming this, so I technically have one more day of reading tomorrow. However, I don't think I'm gonna finish my current read by then, which is Warbreaker. Very excited that I finally went back to that. So I'm saying that I read about 11 and a half books in November, which, all things considered, I think that's like pretty good because I really did not have that much time to read this month. So I'm going to start with fantasy books. So first I read Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Chronicles of Castellane series, and I have to say, I was very pleasantly surprised by this book. I think it took me a little bit longer than I anticipated to get into it, but then once I did get into it, I was like really into it. And I've seen a lot of complaints about the book, but I just don't agree. Like, I thought that it was actually a really good book, and it was so full of political intrigue. That's always like something that just works really well for me. So I think like maybe if you went into it expecting it to be very like action-packed, because Swordcatcher, it's really not very action-packed. It's really like a game of politics. We're following two main characters. So we're following Kell, who is the sword catcher for the prince. So basically his job is to kind of fill in and be like a body double for the prince. He'll go and he'll do like events. People think that he is the prince in order to keep the prince safe. So he's like kind of like a bodyguard, but he also like kind of pretends to be him sometimes, and they're really close. And he also is in the court of Castellane, but people think that he's just like a noble, but he was actually like an orphan kid that was plucked in order to have this job. So their relationship is really nice. Like him and the prince are super close. And then we're also following a girl named Lynn, who is like a healer, and she is really good at what she does, but she is like maybe a little bit dabbling and learning about like the magical side of healing, which is completely forbidden in this world. I really liked both stories. I really liked both main characters. I actually really liked all of the characters in the book. I felt like everything was really well developed, and I'm very much looking forward to book 2. I ended up giving this one a 3.5 stars. So it's like so close to a 4. And like the more that I think about it, the more that I'm like, I feel like I should just bump it up to a 4. And I feel like the only reason that I didn't initially give it a 4 is because the book I read before it was so good that this one just like was not as good. I don't necessarily think that's fair. And again, like I do feel like the story and these characters have stuck with me. So I really think I might bump my rating up for this one. And if you haven't read it because you've seen negative reviews, I would definitely give it a chance because I really enjoyed it. Then I read The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst, and I liked this book. This was like a cozy, they said romantasy, but I would say this is 100% not romantasy. It's a cozy fantasy, and there is a little bit of a romantic plot line, but it's like really not the main focus. I think like to sell it as a romantasy kind of does a disservice to the book, because when you think romantasy, you think like those very like explicit kind of scenes, and like romance really is the central driving force, and that's just not the case for this book. But I liked it. I thought it was really, really sweet, a really nice story, and I did like the main character. She's like a librarian, and her library gets set on fire. There's like a rebellion happening, and she flees to the island where she was born and where her parents had kind of raised her before they moved to the city. So her house is still there. She ends up taking up in her old dwelling and reintegrating herself into this community, this close-knit tight community of quirky characters. So it was pretty delightful. I think I was expecting, I really don't know what I was expecting, but I think overall just cozy fantasy just isn't my favorite. I do like it. I think I have to be in like a very specific mood for it, but it's just not my favorite genre. So I don't feel like I liked it as much as I thought that I was going to. Like, it was really heartwarming. It was really feel good. It was really delightful. I do think it was also very well written, but for some reason, it just didn't like wow me in the way that I was really thinking that it would. So if you like cozy fantasy, I would say this is great and that you absolutely should read it. If you are kind of more on the fence about cozy fantasy, you might fall into the same kind of realm as me where it's enjoyable, but it's not like an earth-shattering book that I'm going to be thinking about forever. Then I read The Mime Order by Samantha Shannon. And wow, this book just totally blew me away. I was not expecting to love this one as much as I did. I read The Bone Season, and I think I read The Bone Season earlier this year, and I really liked it, but I didn't love it. I knew that I wanted to continue with the series, and I'm like so glad that I did, because this second one I just found so compelling. I really liked the way that everything, like all of the fallout was dealt with from the end of book one. And the end of this book was such a major cliffhanger that if I had been reading these in real time when they were published, like I don't even know how I would have survived the wait for book 3. I'm so glad that book 3 is already on its way to me, because I cannot wait to pick this up. I think this whole world is just fascinating. I really like the concept that's going on in here. And I'm really excited to see how things are going to build even more. I have no doubt that I'm going to read books 3 and 4 like really soon, and then I'll be all ready for book 5, and then I probably going to fall in the camp of not knowing how I'm going to wait, because I think there are supposed to be 7 of these. But yeah, I'm really glad that I ended up loving this one so much. I just felt so completely blown away by this book. It was wonderful. Then I finally finished reading Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dimian, and I really enjoyed this too. So this one I listened to on audio, and it was driving me crazy that this had been on my currently reading shelf forever, because Andrew and I actually started listening to this audiobook together on my birthday. We did like a puzzle and we listened to Dungeon Crawler Carl. So the reason that I never finished it is because we finished our puzzle, and we just like never think to like listen to an audiobook together if we're not doing a puzzle. So we ended up like, you know, stopping, and then we just like never came back to it. So while we moved in and we were building furniture, I was like, we are finishing this audiobook, and I'm so glad that we did. I thought it was so much fun. Like, it was way better than I was expecting. I think the audiobook was really phenomenal. All of the voice actors were so good. I really like the voice of the person that like narrates the achievements that you get in it. Basically, the concept is like, it's this guy who is in a post-apocalyptic kind of world. They get like invaded by aliens, and all of them get thrown into like this reality show where they have to dungeon crawl, and whoever can like kill things in the most exciting ways ends up like getting points and leveling up. And Carl here is dungeon crawling with his cat, Princess Donut, and they have a really fun dynamic. So it was just really humorous, really fun. There were parts that were like a little bit more crass than I typically like in books, but I thought it was like pretty delightful, and I'm really looking forward to starting book 2. I think I definitely want to go the audiobook route for that one too. So probably the next puzzle that Andrew and I do, which should be New Year's Eve, that'll probably be when we start book 2. And then my half book that I read is Warbreaker. I'm literally 50% into this, and I know that there's no way that I'm going to read another 50% of it tomorrow, but I just wanted to mention that I finally went back to picking this up. I'm really into it, really loving it, and I'm really excited to give you my final thoughts next month in December. Then moving on to romance. So the first book that I read was Daydream by Hannah Grace, and this is actually the last book that I finished in October. This one follows Henry, who I really liked from the previous books, and it's his romance with Hallie. Hallie is an extreme people pleaser, and their relationship is so cute because Henry is like, he doesn't have any type of diagnosis, but he is definitely like a little bit like neurodivergent. He's having trouble in one of his classes, and Hallie offers to tutor him. Not even tutor him, just like essentially help him like understand the material better by like boiling things down to what it is that he actually has to understand to pass the class. Oh, this is also hockey romance. Hallie has an extremely demanding family, and she has broken up with her boyfriend who is on a hockey team at one of the rival schools, and he was not good to her. Like, he just expected her to do everything. Their mutual friends were really his friends, so once they broke up, she really didn't have anybody left, and she decided to kind of go out and like try making her own friends and meeting people at Maple Hills. And I really liked their story. I thought it was really cute. I still think that Icebreaker is my favorite book in the series. And while I felt like the relationship in this one was very mature, I really appreciated like all of the communication. I really liked the way that the characters treated each other. I did feel like there were points where it could have just been edited down. I felt like it like dragged at points, and it was just like a bit long for a romance. Like, it didn't need to be as long as it was. But I did really overall enjoy it very much, and I think I gave this one 4 stars. Then I read The Front Runner by Elsie Silver. This is book 3 in the Gold Rush Ranch series. One of my end of year goals was to finish this series, so now I have 1 book to go, which is very exciting. This one follows Stefan, who was kind of like a bit of an antagonist in the earlier books, and Mira, who is a veterinarian for the horses. Their relationship is so cute. I really, really enjoyed this book very much. Mira is actually also a little bit of a people pleaser, and she also has a bit of a rough family dynamic. Then we have Stefan, who does not know who his dad is, and he has quite the family history as well, like a pretty intense history, but the two of them kind of have this like instant connection, and Mira's friends hate him. Like, if you've read the previous books, you'll know that they did not get along. So watching the two of them grow close together and like choosing each other, it was just really sweet, really delightful, and I really enjoyed this one. I think I gave this one 4.5 stars, and I'm really excited to read the last book in the series too. And the last romance book that I read was The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Lori Gilmore. This is the second book in the Dream Harbor series, and honestly, I felt like this book was pretty awful. I think I liked it even less than the first book, which I said was pretty middling. I was hoping that the series would get better as it continued, and I just really don't think that it did. I think this one was worse. I don't know why, but I'm still gonna read the third book, the Christmas Tree one, probably because we're in kind of Christmas season. And if that one is on par with either of these, I'm gonna just finally DNF the series and give up. It's a small town romance, so by all accounts, it sounds like something that I would really like, but I just didn't. Like, it just wasn't great, unfortunately. And they have such pretty covers, so it just makes me so sad because I really wanted to love them. And even like knowing I didn't love the first one, I thought like for sure the second one's gotta be better, and it wasn't. Then moving on to nonfiction, I read Heartbreak is the National Anthem, How Taylor Swift Reinvented Pop Music by Rob Sheffield. This was so much fun. I listened to this while I was unpacking too, and I just wanted this book to go on forever. Like, it's pretty short, and I wish it was like 1,000 pages more. It was so good. It was like a retrospective into Taylor Swift's career. It's completely like just jam-packed with song lyrics, things that like if you're a Swiftie, they'll just speak to you on such like a deep level. And I had such a blast reading this. I think that Rob Sheffield has a knack for really like diving into like the heart of Taylor's music, and he was like an indie rock reviewer, but he is such an intense Taylor Swift fan, which is really nice. Like, he talks about how like indie albums were always what spoke to him, and then like Taylor Swift, like all of her music was just like amazing, and he just chronicles like all of these things that happened throughout her career, and it was just so much fun. Honestly, I would listen to this again. Like, I loved it that much. Then I listened to Welcome to Pawnee, Stories of Friendship, Waffles, and Parks and Recreation by Jim O'Heir. Jim O'Heir is the actor who played Jerry on Parks and Rec, and this also was really fun. It was just like an entertainment book talking about the creation of Parks and Rec. It like reflected back to the filming of the show, had some like really fun little tidbits about things that happened on set, the way that the show kind of came to be, a lot of the like thought that went into the planning, all of the casting, even like between seasons, like between season 2 and 3, I think, when they weren't really sure if they were going to get picked up for next season. So then they just started like writing everything that they wanted to happen into the show because they weren't sure if they were going to get picked up again, and then they kind of like stuck with that mentality through the end. I just had so much fun because I love Parks and Rec, so I really enjoyed this book as well. Then I listened to Grimoire Girl by Hilary Burton Morgan. Hilary played Peyton on One Tree Hill. I read her other nonfiction book, which The Rural Diaries, that was it. Really enjoyed that one, so I was looking forward to reading Grimoire Girl too. And I liked it, didn't love it. This is another one that I listened to while I was unpacking. It was kind of fun. Like, she talked about the importance of leaving a legacy or like grimoire behind for your descendants so that things can get passed down through generations. And she talked about like creating your own book with, you know, your own recipes, your own stories, like things that would essentially become like folklore within your family. So I really liked the concept and I did like hearing her stories, but I just wasn't like in love with the book. So I thought it was fun. I gave this one 3 stars. And then lastly, I read Status and Culture: How Our Desire for Social Rank Creates Taste, Identity, Art, Fashion, and Constant Change by W. David Marks. And this book was excellent. I really enjoyed this. I listened to this one as well. My brother recommended this book to me because we were having a conversation and I was kind of talking to him about how just like being a person online, I feel like sometimes it can be really hard to identify like what it is that you actually want versus what it is that you think you want. My brother was like, oh my God, like then there's this book that you should read. And he was so right. Like this totally just delved into every kind of psychological aspect that you could imagine when it comes to culture and desire and just like the way that trends and stuff trickle down and trickle up. And what that means and how it shapes different subcultures. It was just truly fascinating and I just absolutely loved it. I really want to get a physical copy of this for my bookshelves because it was exceptional. And if you have any interest in that kind of thing, I highly recommend this book too. It was so interesting. Okay, and then moving on to TV and film. I'm going to talk a little bit more during this category than usual because I skipped talking about TV in October since I had read so many books. So I'm going to kind of keep things brief, but there are some shows that I wanted to touch upon. The first one that I'm going to mention, which I actually did watch in November and actually just finished yesterday, was The 3 Body Problem, which is on Netflix. And wow, I loved this show. I'm so excited to read the books now. They seemed kind of like an intimidating sci-fi to me, like knowing that they are translated. I just wasn't sure like how it would go for me. Like, not that I feel like I'm like unable to read complex things, but I just felt like I knew that it would be a challenge and I just, as much as I wanted to read it, I just really wasn't motivated to. And I'm really glad that I went the route of watching the show first because I was like, oh my God, like I'm gonna love this book series so much. And I know that they changed a lot from it, but I don't know what those changes were since I haven't read it. But I really feel like the TV show got me really excited to read the books and that it's almost like the push that I needed. So I'm definitely gonna be reading The 3 Body Problem very soon and I'm really looking forward to the next season. I think it was so well done. I just really liked the whole concept and all of the like interconnected storylines. Like it was just fascinating. I liked the VR element. Really wonderful, really excellently done. Then back in October, Andrew and I watched Only Murders in the Building season 3. So we're a season behind. Season 4 is currently on air or might be like even ending soon. And we both really liked season 3. I think I liked it, both of us actually. We both liked it more than season 2, but still agree that season 1 is definitely the strongest. It kind of feels like season 1 was meant to be like a standalone kind of situation and it worked so well. And then in season 2 and season 3, they just kind of kept trying to like recapture the magic of the previous seasons. And while it's been fun, it just has never been as fun as season 1. So I think 3 was stronger. I did really like the Broadway element. I thought that was fun. Also, Meryl Streep was amazing. So it was enjoyable, but not like a new favorite. Then I watched the first season of Nobody Wants This, which is the rom-com starring Adam Brody and Kristen Bell. I love both Adam Brody and Kristen Bell, so I was immediately on board for this. I really liked the series. I thought it was a really good romance. I really liked how well the main characters communicated with each other. I liked the kind of like conflicts that arose. I also really loved both of their siblings. Their siblings were so funny. I'm really excited that it's getting picked up for a second season, but I'm a little bit hesitant because I do know that the showrunner is changing, so I'm just hoping that like the heart of the series won't change along with it. Then we watched Bridgerton season 3, which is based on Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, which is the romance between Penelope and Colin. I really like the book version, so I don't know if I'm just being like overly critical because I don't feel like the adaptation lived up to the book, but that was definitely how I felt, and I felt like there was just like a lot going on. They also included the Francesca, like the beginning Francesca storyline. And I feel like they just keep making changes that I just really like don't love. And I know that the next season is supposed to be the Benedict season. And I'm like very curious how that's gonna go because based on this season, like I felt like there was no setup for it. And like, I don't even know what's going on with him now and how he's gonna go from that to being with Sophie. So I don't know. I had like kind of mixed feelings about it. Like, I think that it's really fun. I really love all the costumes. I really love just like the way that the whole thing is shot. The story wasn't as good for me this season. Then we watched Vox Machina season 3. This is the adaptation of Critical Role's Vox Machina campaign, which is their first campaign. And I also was kind of disappointed with this season. I felt like season 2 was so strong and I was just like so invested in every single episode. And then this season just like really wasn't holding my attention, which is really unfortunate. There's going to be a 4th season. I'm obviously going to watch it anyway, but I was definitely disappointed in season 3. We also watched the first season of Agatha All Along. That I absolutely loved. I loved the aesthetic of the show. I loved the witchiness. I loved the interesting characters. Like, I just thought the show from beginning until the penultimate episode was pretty perfect. And then I have to say the last episode I felt like was a little bit disappointing. Not in a way where it like ruined the show for me. I still really overall would say this is one of the best Marvel shows that's ever been made. So don't take what I'm saying as me like saying I didn't like it. I really, really loved it. I just felt like some of the storyline was like dragged on a little bit because it was like pretty obvious things that had happened earlier. And then I felt like that was very hand-holdy, which I don't really like. I like when properties will trust their audience a little bit more to draw conclusions versus having to like really show you like this is what happened. So yeah, didn't love the last episode, but really loved every single other episode. We also watched seasons 1 to 3 and what is currently available of season 4 of Ghosts. This show is really fun. It's just like a sitcom, and it's set in this like old house in New York. These two characters end up leaving their lives in the city because the girl inherits this house after someone in her family passes away, and the house is haunted and full of ghosts. And she has an accident like in the beginning, in like the first episode of the show, and I think she like maybe like dies for like a minute or something, but then kind of comes back to life when she's in the hospital. And when she comes back to life, then she's able to see all of the ghosts. So it's really fun. It's really humorous, especially because her husband cannot see any of the ghosts. So she like kind of looks like a crazy person sometimes. And she has to kind of relay to her husband like what's going on. And he also like wants to kind of be familiar with the ghosts. So it's just very funny. And then it's also funny like when they have outside visitors who don't realize that Liv is seeing all of these ghosts around her and she just looks like she's insane. And they turn the house into like a B&B. It's really fun, really cute, really enjoy the show. Then moving on to movies, I somehow had never in my life seen A Knight's Tale. And Andrew was like, I think that you would really like this. So one day after work, he was like, we're watching A Knight's Tale tonight. So I was like, great, let's do it. And he was totally right. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I don't know how I've gone this long in life without seeing it, but I'm really glad that now I can say I have, and I do really enjoy it. Then I watched the Martha documentary on Netflix. It's the documentary about Martha Stewart, and I thought it was fascinating. I really enjoyed it from beginning to end. I like that they interview Martha, so everything is in her own words, and just like seeing her story from when she was a really young child through the rise when she was really like at the top of her game, and then to her very public fall when she had the like insider trading incident and ended up going to prison, and then her rise again after that, and how she's really managed to maintain a relevancy in our society that is like kind of unheard of, especially for women, in order to have like that kind of longevity. She's really just a really interesting figure. She seems like a bit cold. She definitely does not come off very well in the documentary, but I really very much enjoyed it. And I've been asking my dad to look for all of the Martha Stewart cookbooks in his house that my mom had that he can find, because I'm like, I want them all. And then finally, the last movie that Andrew and I watched was My Old Ass, which stars Aubrey Plaza. It was not at all what I was expecting. I really thought that it was going to be like very comedic, and it wasn't. It was more like dramatic. I would say definitely more like of like dramatic overtones. And there was some comedy, but it wasn't as funny as I was expecting, but it was a good movie. I did like it. Aubrey Plaza is like her adult, like 30-year-old self is able to communicate with her teenage self. And she's like kind of trying to give her advice about living her life and like some things to do and not to do. And their dynamic is really interesting. It made for a fun movie, and I really liked the overall message, but it definitely was like a bit sad. So do with that what you will. And then as far as games, I had zero time to play any games this month. We don't even have any of our gaming stuff set up yet. We're still trying to unpack and get settled. So nothing to report there, but that is everything for my November wrap up. I'm hoping that I'll be able to read more in December, but I'm really not banking on it, because I think that we're still trying to unpack. We still have to decorate for Christmas. We're going to be hosting Christmas and then a weekend afterwards. So I think I'm just going to be really, once again, like really, really busy, and I'm really going to have to kickstart my reading in January, when I have my like favorite just like hibernation month of the year. So yeah, I think that's everything. Let me know your favorite book that you read in November, and I will see you guys soon in a new video. Bye!